Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a hateful, entitled vegan Karen is extremely upset because of my frequent barbecues. We of course refuse to stop when she orders us to cease all barbecues immediately. However, she ends up slapping my disabled son because he dared to eat meat in front of her. Here is what happened. The first one goes like this. I've had some serious beef, excuse the pun, with my neighbor Karen for quite some time when it comes to my barbecues. I love everything about barbecues, from the food itself to the environment I surround myself with. In my culture, they are a very big thing, and getting the whole family together and feeding them all is nice and special to all of us. Most of my cousins live in apartments where they cannot really host, so my house is basically the hub of where the family always gets together and has a big cookout. Karen, meanwhile, is a vegan, and the reason I know this is because she cannot say two sentences about anything without bringing up this fact. No matter the topic and how far away from food it could be, you can be sure to hear Karen mention that she's a vegan and brings the entire conversation around that. I don't have any issue with her being vegan, but she needs to learn that it is not a personality trait. Also, she needs to learn that I have the right to do anything I want on my property without her getting a say. Most of the interactions I have with Karen have to do with her complaining about my barbecues and saying that I cannot do them. There's no rule about having gatherings or anything like that, as long as nothing illegal is going on, of course. So I try to ignore Karen most of the time and just remind her that I can eat anything I want and she should just go into her house and ignore it if she hates it so much. Then she says things along the lines of calling her vegan mothers group and making sure that they stop all the barbecues in the neighborhood. I guess she has like a little group of other Karens that think if they hold some kind of majority they can force the entire area into only eating vegan. It makes just about as much sense to me as it probably does to you, which is none. So the biggest thing I have though is one time she decided to tell me that my child is disabled because I feed him meat, and if he was on an all-vegan diet he would be cured. My son has a birth defect and been in a wheelchair his entire life. No amount of tofu is gonna make the muscles in his legs magically work and let him start walking again. She can talk crap about my barbecues, but bring my kid into things and then we have a problem. I told her to never talk about my son again and warned her to stay away. I guess the message got lost in all of her hairspray, because the next time I had a barbecue, she decided to take things up to a whole different level. We were all having a great time and I had just set up my son with a plate of chicken wings fresh off the barbecue. It is one of his favorite foods, and I will admit I spoil him a little bit and usually give him from the first batch instead of making him wait. I go back to the grill where my husband and cousin are cooking to plate some more food when I hear a slap and my son yell out. I turn to see that Karen had stormed onto my property and slapped the chicken wing out of my son's hands. He was scared and had no idea why this lady he never really met before just attacked him. She then started yelling at him that eating chicken was murder and that we as his parents were trying to hurt him by giving it to him. My son is only 8 years old and was now scared and angry about his food being taken away. She raised her hand again, and since there was no chicken wings left, I can only assume she was about to slap him. I was moving since I heard the scream and got there before she even had a chance to hit my son. Me, what the hell do you think you're doing to him? Karen, you're trying to feed him poison and I want to save his life. Don't you want to see your son walk and run like all the other kids? You're horrible parents. Me, how dare you come onto my property and tell me how to raise my kid? Is slapping him gonna magically make him walk too? Or are you just so petty about us having a barbecue that you feel the need to go after a disabled child? I'll fully admit that I shouldn't have resorted to violence, but I ended up slapping Karen in my pure rage. I did not care if a fight was about to break out because nobody even attempts to lay a hand on my baby. It did not get that far because other relatives were getting in between us to stop things. Then I went back to focusing on my son and explaining to him that she was our neighbor and a horrible lady that was saying a bunch of lies. I did not want him thinking anything she said could be true and getting his hopes up. Karen had called the police on me and I would have thought it was for slapping her. But when they got there though, she started going an entirely different route and yelling at the police that we were having an illegal gathering, abusing a child and eating meat in a vegan-only neighborhood. Obviously, none of those were actual things, but the police now had to go and ask everybody who they were and what kind of thing we were all doing. After that waste of time on everybody's part to conclude that we were having a family barbecue and they wanted to know what the issue was. Q, my son, who went right up to one of the officers and told him exactly the issue. Son, that lady ran over and smacked my chicken wings away. Now they are on the grass and I cannot eat them anymore. Not the answer they were looking for, but I gave major props to the guy for not ignoring my kid or laughing at him, thinking the police came because of his chicken wing being on the ground. The officer told him that they were gonna take care of everything and they were sorry that his wings were all over the grass. They went to Karen and told her that there was no law being broken against us having a barbecue. That there was no such thing as the neighborhood being vegan, and if she did not want to eat meat, then she shouldn't. They also warned her that violence against a child is serious and they better not get another call of her going after my son. Finally, they told her to stay on her property and leave my family alone, or else they were gonna get called back and have no choice but to arrest her. Her only response was again to attempt to slap my child, this time right in front of the cops. I would have hit her again, but they beat me to it and knocked her flat on the ground. Very ironically, right in the same spot as the chicken wings, which was just perfect in my eyes. She was arrested for attacking my son right in front of a police officer like an idiot and taken away. The last thing I want to mention though happened a couple of months later. So the thing is, Karen runs something like a vegan cooking business or something stupid like that, and I don't know how the law works, but I guess once you get arrested and you're in the system, you get checked out a little more thoroughly. And well, it turns out that she was not paying taxes and that was why she had the money to afford her Karen lifestyle. The business promptly got shut down, and while I have no evidence, there were rumors that the food was not being prepared to FDA standards as well. I would say she got what she deserved for trying to hit a disabled child. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that is certainly true, but I would say Karen would have deserved even worse. But then again, to be honest, don't get me wrong, this Karen was obviously awful, but usually I don't really like to hate on vegans. Even though I am a meat eater, I definitely appreciate people who try to eat more plant-based diets. But then again, I also don't like it when others try to force you to adapt their lifestyle. Either way, let me know in the comments whether you prefer vegetables or meat. The next one is titled Maliciously Complied. I worked at a pretty popular department store for years, and I have to say that the customers this store breeds are the worst of the worst. This store is probably 90% of the reason that so many customers feel as entitled as they do. Stuff like, "The cashier had hiccups, it was incredibly annoying, isn't there anything you can do for me?" was an actual honest-to-God complaint one lady had for me when I was a supervisor. So anyway, I was covering a breakup at the registers. I was a supervisor at the time, and I had also already given my 2 weeks notice. I was honestly beyond fed up. It was like spring of my senior year all over again. I had no more Fs left, so I'm at the register and this lady, who couldn't have been more than 40, comes up with a huge cart full. Anyone who has worked retail, you know this woman. She's got the hair, she is smacking her gum at me while she talks on the phone. The entire transaction is delayed because I need her to pay, and she starts to ignore me because apparently I am the rude one for interrupting her phone call. She proceeds to tell the person on the other end, "Give me a second," and finally turns to me and says, as if I am an impatient child testing her last bit of patience, "Yes, here's your total, ma'am. Do you have any coupons or rewards to use today?" She nodded, and here is when she drops a few clippings on the counter in front of me, ignoring my outstretched hand, and turns her attention back to her phone. As soon as I look at the coupons, I see that none of them are usable. She has one that is $10 off your menswear purchase of $50 or more. She has all women's clothing. The next coupon expired 2 months ago. Another one does not start for another week, etc. So I try to get her attention. She's just as lovely and accommodating as the last time. She rolls her eyes and tells the person on the phone that she will have to call them back and gives me another sharp "yes." "Sorry ma'am, this coupon is expired, this one has not started, and this one is only for when you purchase $50 worth of menswear. Do you have any other coupons or rewards?" She stares at me like I had just called her mother some unsavory name. Excuse me, what? What could I do but shrug helplessly? You've got to be kidding me. That's the entire reason I came out here today, to use those coupons. I really cannot use them? Unbelievable. Some customer service here. All the while she is packing her useless coupons back into her purse and glaring scorch marks into my soul. Remember I said I was done? My patience before Shopzilla here was already at 0. She tipped the scales, I was officially in the negatives. I had negative Fs and negative patience left, so when she said, "You should be ashamed of yourself being so rude to a customer," something in me snapped. I smiled sweetly at her, mustered up a bright and cheery expression that I usually reserve as my waitress face and said, "I'm so sorry you feel that way, ma'am. But on the bright side, since it's Tuesday, I can still apply your senior's discount, so at least you're not losing that one, right?" I cannot quite describe her expression. I think she was angry, but I think she was more shocked. And in that state of shock, she sputtered out, "I'm not a senior." I mimicked her shock, trying to appear horrified by my accidental faux pas, and then immediately said, "Let me take that off there for you then." And promptly took the senior discount off, bumping her total up another $20. "I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding, ma'am." Oh boy, she was pissed, but like I said, I think she was more shocked. She seemed a little dumbfounded, she paid, she took her stuff and she left. I will take that petty moment of satisfaction and her horrified expression to my grave. Honestly, it was even worth the write-up that I did end up getting after she called the store and gave my manager a piece of her mind. And yeah, ripe stars, I just cannot imagine how difficult it must be to deal with such entitled customers. Props to OP. The next one is a pro-revenge story. So I was a new but qualified recruit in a small team that was working with a very large client and stakeholder in the company. Despite my skills, it was my first real job fresh out of grad school, so I was inexperienced with office politics, contract law, power hierarchies, and etc. The clients had given us an almost impossible task to prototype a complex solution to a technical problem that they had. As the only one in the team with the relevant expertise, the burden quickly fell on me to deliver alone while the others essentially managed. The team leader and effective boss promised me at the beginning that I would get a bonus worth roughly 30% of the salary on which I was hired. Apparently, this bonus was a direct financial contribution from the big clients themselves, and the wheels were in motion to get this extra cash. Great, but not really, because it was not in writing. Over the next 2 years, however, no such bonus compensation transpired. I would periodically and half-heartedly ask about this bonus during in-person meetings, and I was verbally reassured that it was on its way. In hindsight, I would have been more assertive and perhaps sent an email, but again, I was a newbie and unwilling to bite the hand that feeds, so to speak. After these 2 years, the company began to expand business with the clients as a direct result of the work that I was on the impossible project. At some point, the clients even present all that hard work of mine at some international conferences, of course claiming it their intellectual property and proprietary solution. Although the project ownership rightfully and lawfully belonged to them, the lack of acknowledgement left a bitter taste in my mouth, and worse was that money flowing around and both companies were profiting from 2 years of painstaking effort, but still there was no bonus in sight. So my work contract was also nearing its end in the 3rd year. Obviously, the company wanted to retain me to continue on this project. I was the only one who knew the ins and outs of it. It would be a joint employment between the company and client, as I would be tasked with transitioning the project from the company to the client, which would require several more years to do so. I also went through half a year of specialist training with the clients, only I could do this job for the foreseeable future. For this, I was offered a decent increase in my salary, but that missing bonus was ruining my trust. At a contract negotiation meeting, I asked about it one last time. The team leader and boss said that they had no recollection of such an agreement/offer and that I should have gotten it in writing. Fair enough, some lessons are learned the hard way. However, the worst realization was that the missing bonus, a measly 30% of the new higher salary for almost 3 years, was now earmarked for an intern to join me on the project. It was almost a one-to-one calculation, as the client would sponsor the intern with the funds that were intended bonus for me. It was the last week of the work contract, and Human Resources had invited me to double-check the document before I was to sign it. Of course, given all the time, money, training and resources invested in me continuing on this project and my very real eagerness to do it, it was assumed that I would be here for the long haul and the work contract was a formality. So what happened next is something that I don't recommend that anyone try at home or work for that matter. It was a moment of impulse from a reckless youth. However, I was feeling particularly vengeful about this missing bonus. My ego had been bruised because I wrongfully trusted them to follow through, but I was not clever enough to get the agreement in writing. Well, Uno reverse card moment, there was also no written agreement on my end. So I had not yet signed the contract. I carefully double-checked my emails and there was nothing in writing where I agreed to continue on this project or even this job. In fact, I had just been verbally enthusiastic about the project during meetings with my boss and the clients. The first new workday rolls around when I'm officially no longer employed at the company or with the clients. I gave no notice and no warnings, I just abandoned them. On the previous day I had left my company pager and phone in the office locker. I had to sacrifice a few personal possessions on the office desk and I logged out of the work email and messenger system so they could not reach me. I'm not sure how they responded because I ignored and deflected every single communication which came my way for following months. It was bliss knowing that I probably caused this company a major catastrophe for the next few years at least. However, I could of course not predict the consequences that they would face from abrupt and unannounced exit, but I did not have time to care about them. I had to become selfish and I had to dip into my savings and relocate and start afresh and anew in another city far away, which was very difficult without references considering the professional bridge that I had just burned. Hence the not recommending part, but eventually my skills began to speak for themselves. The last I heard about the company was from an ex-colleague as we reconnected on an online professional network a few years ago. Apparently the company still exists, but it is a shell of its former self as things went horribly south after I left. They lost the big client as I had anticipated, no one else had the skill set to do the work, the clients are still players in the sectors, but I have the great fortune of not having to interact with them so far. But I could not have predicted the domino effect that followed in the company. Basically, a few more large clients followed soon after because staff had to be reshuffled to do my project and these other clients felt neglected. Now they are downsizing and in the process of being swallowed by a competitor. From what I gather, the other big casualty of the revenge is my ex-boss developed some substance problem around this time to cope with the stress, triggered in part by not being able to contact me for months on end during a critical time in the company's expansion. Throw in a divorce too, because this work stress destroyed the marriage as well. I did feel a little bit guilty when my ex-colleague explained all this, and I still do. Is it enough for me to right my wrongs and write an apology or something? Well, not really, but perhaps I'm wrong here. I am open to suggestions. By the way, note, this ex-boss has tried to get in touch with me a few more times some years after things went downhill, but I was too busy, so I just continued to the ghosting strategy. But anyway, here is to dumbass INC. I hope it was worth the measly bonus that I deserved. I was brought on as a new recruit and I was a junior who had to lead the project from the get-go. I had to work hard and learn new skills in the hours outside of work so that the fat clients and middle management to reap the rewards. Not on my vengeful watch. The reason that I'm writing this is that it is somewhat cathartic. The company did some crappy things and so did I, but this missing bonus still eats me from time to time. I could have bought a house and I could have settled down in that old town. I would not have been displaced for months and living with my head just above the water, having to rebuild myself for a good few years following that. Abandoning the project and the job was professional suicide at the time. However, my revenge was such that whatever happened, I would try to get through life without groveling back to that company. Of course, this arrogant a-holery of mine, born from this hatred having not gotten that bonus, still has at least one unwritten chapter. At the current workplace where I am also a stakeholder now, I am now proposing a new version of that old project I began a decade ago and I never got a chance to see it to completion. It would be nice to showcase a pattern during an international conference attended by those big former clients, which would be a real bonus. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm really curious what you think about this story. Do you think that OP went too far or that what he did was just right? I'm really curious about your opinion. I think we can at least agree that OP got a very satisfying revenge. And I would definitely not want to mess with this guy. Entitled Karen neighbor insisted I remove my gate and fence so she can park in my driveway and swim in my pool. So, I'm not originally from the USA, I was born and raised in a foreign country. I had the opportunity to study abroad in college, and that is where I met my husband, fell in love and moved to the USA. I am mentioning this because there are a lot of cultural differences and societal differences between my home country and the USA. One of them being the houses. Where I am from, most of the houses and neighborhoods are gated. And I just mean a simple gate or fence. What I mean by that is, each house will have their own security gate and fence that goes all the way around their house. And we don't park our cars in the street, but instead in our driveway, which are also inside the security gate. On top of this, most neighborhoods are gated. That means there is a big hefty gate with an attendant or passcode. About half of these neighborhoods have security guards that stand outside these gates. It was very safe and secure no matter what kind of neighborhood you were in. Your house is always protected. When my husband visited with me the first time, he was surprised that more houses and neighborhoods in America are not like this. And by the way, Ripe Stars, just to quickly chime in, have you ever lived in a neighborhood like this? In Thailand, these kinds of neighborhoods are really common, so I'm curious if they are also common where you are from. Let us know in the comments. So, when we got married, we decided that we wanted a house with a gate that is similar, and if we could not find one, we would add one. Well, that is exactly what we did. We found a beautiful home with a huge backyard. We found the right people to install an automatic gate. When we moved in and did this, the next door neighbors were on vacation, so we did not have the chance to meet them right away. Everyone else had been lovely to us, so we were excited about finding such a friendly and inviting neighborhood. Flash forward about a week or so and the next door neighbors have returned from their vacation. I'm pretty outgoing myself, so I was excited when they saw us coming home one Sunday and decided to introduce themselves. It was a nice Sunday afternoon, so I decided to invite them out onto our patio for some iced tea so we could formally introduce and get to know each other. We were going to be next door neighbors. It was going wonderful at first. They were polite and seemed genuinely interested in talking to and getting to know my husband and me. However, that quickly changed when they mentioned the automatic gate. The wife suddenly popped and asked, "What's up with the changes you have made to the house? Why do you have scary looking gates now?" I would like to add that I personally don't think it's a scary looking gate. It was a nice white automatic gate. An upgrade to the white picket fence dream, if you will. Also, we're a corner house, so only one side, the side that is up against their house, is taller than the other, but not by much. I explained to them that where I am from, we enjoy our privacy and security. Not that we moved into a bad neighborhood, but it was just nice to be able to feel secure and have the actual privacy you deserved in your own home, you know? I noticed her tone had changed a little bit, and I even added that we had land surveyors out and everything when we had the gate installed and nothing is overlapping property lines or on their property. I did want to make sure we did everything right, as this was the first home my husband and I were buying together. And after stating that, they both seemed really pissed off. The husband even said that we were going to ruin the neighborhood because this was supposed to be a neighborhood where all the kids could play outside and ride their bikes throughout everyone's front yards and backyards. My husband politely apologized and stated that we just wanted to enjoy the house and we would not be okay with the neighborhood kids playing in our yards even if we did not have the gate. By now, they were absolutely heated. The wife had gotten up from her seat and I thought that she was going to escort herself off of our property. She started saying how the gate also blocked our driveway and she had an agreement with the previous owners that she could park her car there when there was no parking on the street. They did not have a driveway, by the way. The husband was also nice enough to add that sometimes they were allowed to swim in the pool. We had a huge pool in our backyard and we had decided to add a jacuzzi. She then basically implied that she was going to file a report with the city because she was sure we were breaking some laws. At this point, we knew there was no trying to turn around the conversation, so we asked them to leave. We decided that we were going to take action before they had the opportunity to file a report. Not that they would find anything illegal anyway, but I wanted to get my point across. It was petty of me, but the next day my husband and I went out to the animal shelter to adopt a huge German Shepherd. We had talked about getting a dog a little after we were actually settled into our new home, but well, this seemed like the perfect opportunity. We even got a "Beware of Dog" sign and hung it in front of the gate. We also got some plants and hung them from the edge of the roof on the taller side of the gate, so that any small area in between this space they could see was now blocked. And finally, I had gone down to the city center and asked them to not just review the plans for the gate and make sure that they were okay, but to put it in writing that all of the plans and installation of the gate was legal and that we were not breaking any laws because everything was within accordance. The next day I stuck the letter in the neighbor's mailbox. They have not talked to us since. But that means they are also not bothering us. I guess that's a win-win. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you have any stories of your own to share about crazy neighbors from hell, then please feel free to share your own story either in the comments or on r/ripestories on Reddit, where you can post your own stories and there is a good chance that I might read them in a video. Thank you so much in advance.